Our story takes place at the Osmond Pittenger Revolutionary War Cemetery, located in Weller Township in Richland County, Ohio, just north of Mansfield. In the fall of 2020, my godson Thomas, his baby mama, and I visited this 18th century cemetery. This is one of a handful of 18th century memorials at this Revolutionary War cemetery. The vast majority of memorials are from the 19th century. I couldn't help but notice that the lion-sized share of this cemetery, particularly in the prime area, such as the center, is lawn, and then it dawned on me that most of the headstones from 3 centuries ago had probably deteriorated and were removed to facilitate mowing. As I was discussing this, the K2 meter, which I was holding, lit up to a 3 out of 5, as if in agreement with my observation and conclusion. This memorial, located near the front of the cemetery, lists the names of all of those who are buried at the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. There are obviously more names on this plaque than there are headstones in the cemetery, which would seem to support my theory about deteriorated and removed markers. While at the cemetery, we came across this grave of a child which had this stuffed monkey. Seeing the monkey, Thomas and I simultaneously commented that our friend and fellow ghost hunter Caitlin had probably left it there during one of her visits. Caitlin often uses stuffed animals, dolls, and candy as trigger objects when dealing with child spirits. This is Thomas attempting to get the child spirit at this grave to light up the K2 meter and/or turn on a flashlight. This is a close-up of the K2 meter registering a 4 out of 5. As you'll see in the following slides, a child spirit was lighting up the K2 meter, but not the one buried at this grave. This is Thomas's baby mama using the dowsing rods to ask yes and no questions at the grave with the stuffed monkey. The spirit indicated that it was responsible for lighting up the lights on the K2 meter, which Thomas had set on the ground by the grave. We asked if the spirit liked the stuffed monkey, and it indicated that it did. After the spirit indicated that it liked the stuffed monkey, I asked if it had given the monkey a name, and before giving it a chance to answer, asked it if it had named the monkey Bozo. I should have given it more time to answer before moving on to my next question. At this point, I was getting excited because it was lighting up the K2 meter and crossing the dowsing rods at the same time. In any event, I'm not sure if it was saying that it coincidentally named the monkey Bozo, or if it liked my suggestion that it should be named Bozo. The spirit indicated to us that it was not an adult. The spirit indicated to us that it was under the age of 10. Through a series of questions, the spirit indicated that it was not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 years old. The spirit confirmed that it was 9 years old when it died. The spirit indicated that it was not a boy. The spirit confirmed that it was a girl. The spirit indicated that it did not die from an illness. To our surprise, the spirit indicated that it had been murdered. The spirit indicated to us that the grave and headstone with the stuffed monkey was not its grave. The spirit indicated to us that it was not even buried at this cemetery. At this point, it was getting a little too incredulous for me to believe. The alleged spirit making contact with us was asking us to believe that it was a 9-year-old who had been murdered, even though I hadn't heard of any 9-year-old murder victims, and that the spirit of this 9-year-old murder victim, who wasn't even buried at this cemetery, just happened to be out and about at 2 o'clock in the morning and decided to talk to some crazy ghost hunters at a cemetery at which she wasn't even buried. To be honest, rather than this, I was starting to believe that Thomas's baby mama had figured out a way to manipulate the dowsing rods. The next day I happened to talk to my ghost hunting friend Caitlin, who had given me directions on how to get to the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. I told her about the stuffed monkey and asked if she had left it there, which she confirmed. I also told her about our dowsing rod session and the incredible tale about a 9-year-old girl spirit who was somehow connected with the stuffed monkey, having been murdered but was not buried at the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. I about fell out of the chair I was sitting in when Caitlin confirmed everything we had learned through the dowsing rod session, except that the spirit liked the stuffed monkey and had named it, or liked the name, Bozo. According to Caitlin, Marjorie Gamble was a 9-year-old girl who had been sexually assaulted and murdered at her home south of Lexington, Ohio, by a farmhand who had committed suicide. Marjorie is buried at the Shock Cemetery near Johnsville, Ohio, approximately 20 miles south of the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. With respect to the stuffed monkey, Caitlin stated that she had left it there and had also left a doll, which she had in her car but had promised it to Marjorie. We only saw the stuffed monkey during our visit, but I made a point to go back to the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery and look for the doll. This is an article that a friend found on the internet which details 9-year-old Marjorie Gamble's murder in March 1940 at her home by farmhand Theodore Smith. This is a close-up of a picture of 9-year-old murder victim Marjorie Gamble, which appeared in the Mansfield News Journal on March 8, 1940. This is a close-up of a picture of farmhand Theodore Smith, who murdered Marjorie Gamble, then committed suicide, which appeared in the Mansfield News Journal on March 8, 1940. This is a close-up of a picture of Marjorie Gamble's father, Plato Gamble, holding the rifle which his farmhand used to murder his daughter, then commit suicide. This picture appeared in the Mansfield News Journal on March 8, 1940. This is a picture of the Gamble murder house, where farmhand Theodore Smith murdered 9-year-old Marjorie Gamble in his basement room and then committed suicide in the first-floor living room. This picture appeared in the Mansfield News Journal on March 8, 1940. After my ghost hunting friend Caitlin informed me that she had left a doll at a grave at the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery, which she had initially promised to Marjorie, I became curious as to why Thomas, his baby mama, and I had only seen the stuffed monkey and not the doll. So that night, Thomas, Josh, and I paid a visit to the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. We found this rather creepy-looking doll resting against the tree along the fence line of the cemetery. Caitlin later assured me that the doll did not look like this when she left it. No one seems to know how the doll got moved from the grave to the tree along the fence line. My guess is that the person responsible for mowing the cemetery grass moved it there. This is a picture of me holding the creepy-looking doll that Caitlin had initially promised to Marjorie and then gave to another little girl spirit at the Osmond Pittenger Cemetery. Upon our finding the doll, which we hadn't seen the night before, the K2 meter started flashing wildly. We were able to determine that it was Marjorie. I asked if she was there because of the doll, and the K2 meter registered a 5 out of 5, which is as high as it goes. This is a picture of Thomas holding the K2 meter as it registered a 5 in response to my asking if she wanted that doll. I think her answer was pretty clear. This is the Gamble grave marker for Marjorie, her mother, and her father, located at the Shock Cemetery, which Caitlin, Thomas, and I visited in 2020. Please notice the much nicer doll which Caitlin left for her. This is a close-up of Marjorie's new doll. Caitlin is related to the caretaker of the Gamble murder house. In the fall of 2020, she obtained permission for us to investigate the house, which we did after visiting Marjorie's grave at the Shock Cemetery. We experienced a lot of activity, including some captured on video, which will be the content of a future video. Stay tuned. Sadly, this old farmhouse is scheduled to be demolished in 2021, if it hasn't already been demolished. In closing, my wife Kimberly doesn't share my interest in the paranormal, but she does like looking at pictures of old and abandoned places, so I took the following photographs of the Gamble murder house for her. Enjoy.